Here I go. Okay, welcome everybody. If you are newer to joining us, welcome. If you're returning for our series, welcome back. Um, today we're going to talk about blocks and the block area in your classrooms. And this was the very first one that we did last year. And I thought that it would be a great opportunity for those who weren't in the know from the get-go to get this important topic because it is a big area for language in your classroom. So, as always, we think about why is this work important? Why is it important to address the needs of all of the language learners in our classroom? And that's because in New Jersey, we have very linguistically diverse population. So we have a lot of people, a lot of children in our classrooms who may not speak English at home. They may have a different primary language that they grew up hearing. They might have multiple other languages that they grew up hearing. And so their entrance into your classroom might be one of the first times that they're engaging with English. And if you're speaking primarily in English, we want to give children really all of the strategies that they can have to learn and to feel comfortable. So top 5 other languages in New Jersey: Spanish, Tagalog, Chinese, Hindi, and Korean. You may have had some of those in your classroom. I know I have all of those. I'm thinking, yeah, all of those in my classroom, whether it was preschool or kindergarten. And so I can speak to that truth. And this stat just always gets me. So more than half of the dual language learners in the educational system in New Jersey are concentrated in those early years, right? And it makes sense because as children age, they gain language skills and maybe they exit those formalized ESL or dual language programs. But in those early years, that's when they're learning the most. So we have to do our best to engage with them. So just quickly thinking about your own experiences in the classroom and teaching, you could use your reactions on Zoom. So thumbs up if you do have some children who may not speak English in your classroom, and maybe the heart button if you already know some strategies to help them. If you've been to this series before in any capacity, you probably do have some strategies that you're starting to use. And also, as you're thinking about today's work, you can also reflect on your own experiences. So what language do you speak at home? What language did you grow up hearing? What were your feelings in learning a second language, whether that was learning English because you had a different home language, or maybe in school, in middle school, high school, college, you attempted to learn a foreign language, right? Like maybe you're a primary English speaker, but you attempted to learn French, Spanish, German, Italian, Mandarin, right? One of those. What feelings did that bring up in you? Was it comfortable? Was it uncomfortable? Why do you still speak those languages? Why or why not? Just, you don't have to put it in the chat, but it's just something to think about and kind of empathize with the children in our classroom. That feeling of discomfort when you're not speaking your primary language, we can kind of reflect on our own previous experiences to understand their feelings. So this was our very first one. And so I put this explanation about multilingual children because over the years, in my learning about this population, the terminology has changed, right? It used to be ESL, right? English as a second language, or non-native English speakers. And so we've moved away from that a bit to think more about, go ahead, somebody needs to say something? Oh, okay. Stop me if you need me. We've tried to decenter the focus on English language acquisition to center it more around building both languages at the same time, honoring the benefit that children get from being bilingual, and talking more about dual language learning or multilingual learning. So today, we're going to have 2 objectives. The first is acquiring just some of the specific language that you might be teaching or using in the block area, and then some strategies to help children learn in the block area. As always, we center our work around the Eckers Tool Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale for multiple reasons. One, if you're in Grow New Jersey Kids and you're enrolled and you're going to be rated, that's the observation tool that the rater will use. But two, and more importantly, it's a research-based tool that really speaks to the way that we can systematically raise the quality of care for the children in our classroom. And for our purposes, we're going to think about the block area item and vocabulary items. So in the Eckers tool, item 12, at the 5 level. So if you know Eckers, you know that it moves from level 1 to a level 7. That 1 is like inadequate. It's not where we want to be in the classroom. It's things like there are no blocks. Children never play with blocks. A staff member never engages with children during block play. Whereas the 3 level, that minimal level, there's some blocks, there's some interaction. And then we're going to focus more on the 5s and 7s, the goods and the excellence. So at the 5 level, staff use specific language for people, places, things, actions. And staff correctly explain the meaning of unfamiliar words. So you're not just using new words, but you're explaining the meaning. And then also in the block area, staff are having conversations with children about their block play. So not just commenting, but engaging in that back and forth, the serve and return of the conversation. Okay, so let's talk about precise language. In the block area, children build, right? They build all kinds of things. They might build their own house. They might build your school. They might build ShopRite, right? Buildings that they know. But for some children, it might be like a place where they're not as comfortable. Maybe that child really loves to color in the art area. Maybe that child really loves to sit in the library and read a book. And when they enter the block area, they're kind of like, looks good, but I don't know. So a great idea is to have some print on the wall, some display that gives lots of examples of things that they could build, right? So if we look here, there's all different types of buildings. It would be an excellent idea not to just print one from the internet, but grab pictures of buildings in your local community that the children would know and recognize and label them with the print so that then when a child is having trouble getting started, you can use it as a tool to help them think of an idea. You could point, well, would you like to build the library? Would you like to build the police station, right? And point to those, really use it as a tool to help jog or get their juices flowing, their creative juices flowing. And it's also being more precise than just saying like, build me a tower, right? Build me a building, which, I mean, we all say that because that's general and easy, but we could certainly be more specific and build children's vocabulary around buildings. Same thing for the work of building. That's a great way to introduce vocabulary that's like around construction, right? So you could talk about vocabulary for tools. You could talk about, all of the different types of people that build the building, like a carpenter or the person who plans the building being an architect. Like those are excellent words to introduce to children in your classroom and to use again and again so that they can learn to use it in their own speech, right? As the role that they may take on. So you might have many children who are building together and there's starting to be some like friction because it's maybe close quarters or they have dueling ideas. Might be a great time to say like, you know what? I think that we need an architect first, and I think we need a carpenter, and I think we need an engineer, right, to make sure that the building is sturdy and it's balanced, it doesn't fall. And assigning those roles can help children kind of work together and solve those social problems. You can also raise the level of the vocabulary you use. So just like I said, not just like, let's make a building or let's make a tower, be specific. Let's make an apartment building or a skyscraper, right? Same thing for tools. You could say, grab your tools. Or like if you could say the hammer or a sledgehammer, right? Just like adding those juicy words can help children be more precise in their language and just also have more fun in the way that they talk. You can do it with nouns like people, places, and things, but you can also do it with your verbs, so your action words. So rather than just build, you could use the words construct or erect, right? Instead of just knock down, you could use the words like wreck or demolish. I know it, I mean, I have children, I have twins who are 5 and a daughter who's 3, and when they use some of these big words from school that I know their teachers are intentionally introducing to them, it makes us all laugh because it sounds so cute out of a little body to hear words like, oh, what did they, like aggravated, like, I don't know, it's funny and it's cute, but it's valuable to them. And it gives children this toolbox to really precisely and explicitly express what they mean. So continue doing it. The other big part of the block area, besides just building buildings, right, is all of the math that children do and engage with when they're in that area. So in the Eckers tool, it says that staff point out math concepts that are demonstrated in the unit blocks in a way that interests them. So for example, more or less, you could talk about the differences between size and shape, right? You can measure. All of these are embedded within the block area item of the Eckers tool because that's our purpose in that area. We want children to be playing with these mathematical skills. So in order to do that, children who might not be native English speakers, or just children in general who might not have like a strong control over the English language, it's our job to introduce the correct vocabulary and also language structures that they might be using to do this. So when we're talking about measurement, you're using words like big or small, right? But you could be more specific when you're talking about length versus height versus weight. You might say things like long versus short, or wide versus narrow, or heavy versus light. So could big or small work for all of those concepts? Probably. Like they would do the trick. They'd get the meaning across, but it's more precise to use long or short when you're talking about length. It's more precise to use heavy or light when you're talking about weight. Often things are the same, right? And so introducing the language structure to children by saying like, this is the same as this, or this is equal to this. That's not really a sentence that they will have heard very often. And so it's our job to use it, to introduce it, to use it again and again, and allow children to practice it. The other language structure that's important when we're talking about math and comparing is the comparative words, right? So big, bigger, biggest, tall, taller, tallest, long, longer, longest. So the way you can do this is as children are building, maybe you're building with them and you can talk about, oh, my building is so big, but yours is bigger. Look, if I use my ruler, it's bigger, it's taller, right? You can use those words through play to introduce and to reuse and to let children become familiar with them. Shapes are also a huge part about the block area, and I would bet that many of your children know the names of their shapes. Probably that's one of the ones that kids really tend to have a strong grasp on. A higher level concept that you could introduce in the block area would be not just the two-dimensional shapes, but the three-dimensional shapes. So talking about cylinders and cubes, and you can explain it to children by saying, oftentimes you might give a child a cube block and you could say like, oh, what shape is this? And they would say square because they're right. There are 6 square surfaces that make up the cube. And you can tell them that. You're right. I do see a square. That's one of the surfaces. Let's count how many square surfaces are on this cube, right? It's just a way to be more precise about the materials in their environment and the vocabulary that they use. The third part about language in the block area is the way that you engage with the children. So those conversations, the back and forth, and also questions. The block area is an excellent place to go beyond just those initial questions of like, what did you make? What shape is it, right? But really asking questions that require the longer answers, the more open-ended questions. So questions like, how did you build that? What would happen if we put this block on top? Why did you choose to use that cylinder block there? Or even just tell me about your building. Just a small shift from what did you build to tell me about your building that really opens up the opportunity for conversation. If you ask a child, what did you build? They can say, a tower. And that's the end, right? There's no reason for the conversation to move further. But if you say, tell me about your building, it opens it up. It might be beyond just tower. It might be, oh, well, I made a tower because, right? And it just allows the conversation to open up and become more open-ended. So I thought we could look at some block buildings and think about some questions we could ask. So if you were here in the first session, these are the pictures I used. So I thought, switch it up a little bit. Let me show you some other block pictures, and I'll show you ones from my own house. So I went through my camera roll, I searched blocks, and here's what came up. So let's talk about it. So here's the first one. Everybody can still see this, correct? I think so. Okay, so this is my son, Max. This is my playroom in my basement, and he was building with blocks downstairs, and this is what he made. So a question that we could ask him in this moment, you could say, like, tell me about what you made, right? But you could also say, like, wow, I noticed, right? I noticed that you used some blocks to make curves on this side. Why did you do that? Right? Or you could say, like, what were you trying to make? So all of these ways you can kind of open up their conversation and learn more about their thoughts behind what they were building and do a little bit more work like that. So let's look at another one together. Okay, here's another one. This is his twin brother, Charlie. I have twins. So another use of blocks. You can feel free to come off of mute if you want or use the chat. What is an open-ended question that you might ask him about this building? Different than one, right?
We just have to wait, Nicole, right? The brave, I said we have to wait for the brave person who's
I know, it's not easy.
unmute.
Not easy.
If you can unmute, or if you want to just pop it in the chat. What's an open-ended question? Oh, I hear somebody.
Okay, what will happen if there are no blocks on the other side? Like I see you
Right.
building something, what will happen if you don't put any blocks on the other side? Yeah.
Absolutely. I know for a fact what happened in real life is he didn't put any blocks on the other side and it fell down, right? Because it wasn't balanced. And that's one of the reasons that we encourage children to engage in this block play, is because they're learning those like pre-engineering skills of how to make things balance and why the physical world doesn't always react the way that we want it to. Great. Here's another one. So in your block area, I know that many of you have unit blocks like these, but you also have accessories like animals and small people and cars and signs. So in this example, obviously he's using some of our small people. I believe they're the cast of CoComelon because that was the rage at the moment that he was building this. So what could be an open-ended question that you might ask him about this building? I know that when I was playing with him, I asked him, like, how did you make all of these rooms for the people to sit in? Like, how did you do that? Can you show me how? That's another great tool in the block area, right? Ask them, can you show me how you did that? It's just a really good way to engage with them. Go ahead.
Can you tell me what's the job of the dog that's on the top of the tower?
Definitely. Right. The questions don't always have to be about like how the building was constructed. It can just open up a larger conversation. So like, oh, what's the dog doing? Tell me about it, right? Is he protecting them? Tell me more.
And we've got some comments in the chat too, Nicole. So we've got how did you balance all of those blocks? Is this tower taller than you or shorter? So thinking about that comparison, right, that you were talking about. I see you have people inside the building. Why did you do that? So can you explain what you're doing? I noticed you put the small half circle block on the top of the big half circle. Why did you do that? And what are the people doing? So lots of great wonderings the
A
teachers
really,
are
really
having.
excellent. Let's look at another one. Oh, this is my daughter Violet.
Can you
More
hear me?
simple, right? Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. You want me to go back?
Because balance, if you say 3 years old children, they don't know what is the balance. That's why my question is, if when they are making the building or tower, when we are saying, what did you make? Okay, this is a tower. How many blocks? How many blocks did you use? Then they could count, and it is math activity also they are going, because balance they don't know, it is not staying, why it is not staying. That's why I'm thinking it is three. I work with the 3 years old children. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah. And absolutely that even within one age group of a class, you might have children where talking about balance is an appropriate question
Yeah, we could
and
talk,
concept.
but they
And for
don't
some
know.
children, maybe not yet. Maybe they
Yeah,
really
not
need
yet.
to do the
Yes.
counting and the comparing first.
Yeah, counting and comparing and how tall it is.
Yes.
So they measuring tape we have in the block area, the thick
Great.
one, big one, that children play with this. They could see, and we could put, we have the paper and pencil, even though they don't know how to write it, just they're
Yeah.
saying 2, 4, or
Yes.
1, 5, like after come, what is the 7, and after come 7, 11.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That's where it comes in, the knowing your students in your classroom, right? As the teacher, you're the expert in what your children know and what they need. And so you can individualize your interactions to really target the skills that they're working on. And that's why it's so important to allow children that 60 minutes or more of free play, so that children can be engaged in what feels comfortable and exciting to them. And the teacher, you can go in there and target the skills that you know they're ready to work on, right? Without just teaching to the whole class, because we know there's such a variation within a class of children. Thanks.
And also I see two children, 2, 3 children, if you encourage them, they come to you and more engaging. And when you say, you did good job, how many? And then they do, they are, what I'm gonna say, they are eager to know this thing and more, bringing the book, bringing that, look, what did I do? Look, what did you make? And I made my mom's house, like that. They are in
the teacher is like the celebrity in the classroom, right? And it goes a long way just to sit on the floor and engage and give that positive attention. And it allows children who might not
positive
feel comfortable.
attention.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here's my daughter. She built a more simple building, but the same questions could apply. You could ask her how she did it. You could ask her why, ask her what might happen if we used all of those blocks and tried to stack them one on top of the other. What might happen, right? All of those are excellent questions to engage. I'm going to show you a video. This was during the Olympics or some gymnastics time of year. She didn't build anything, but she didn't build up, but she did use blocks to engage in play, and I was able to add vocabulary. So let's watch. Oh, sorry. Okay, now on the balance beam. Now jump, dismount. Good, and now twist.
Was that a twist?
Yeah, somersault, kind of. So, right, she didn't build anything, but she did use the blocks to make a balance beam. We had been watching gymnastics on the TV, so I was trying to add in that vocabulary that's specific to what we had been engaging with. Dismount, somersault, right? All of that. It's still a worthwhile way to add vocabulary as children play with blocks. I'll show you one more example. Let's do this one. Oh no, Santa. He can use his magic to get back up to the top.
Okay.
Okay, here comes the train, Santa. Your train is coming.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if it fits through the tunnel.
Oh no!
What? There's only one train car. That's okay. See if it fits through the tunnel.
Yeah.
Santa, the rest of your train is over there. I'm going to stop it for 1 minute. So they had built this tunnel for the train to go through, and they had worked together to do that. So that's right there, thinking about like measurement and estimating size. That was a skill they were working on. My son, Max, the second child that you saw, had a speech delay. So his expressive language was delayed behind the way that he could understand language. And so he said, there. And I said, that's right. It's over there. Just like really using the language that they're attempting and adding and using it in the correct way to build that language skill. You'll see it in a little bit with my daughter too.
Whoa.
Bows. You want to put it in your hair? Let's watch the boys. Same thing. So she came over and she had a little hair bow and she said bow. And I said, it's a bow. Do you want to put it in your hair? So that's that expansion of understanding kind of like the meaning of words and what they do. Also, she just put it in her mouth. So we're just going to ignore that part of my bad parenting. And we're going to stop there for now. So I'm just going to pull back on my slides till we finish up because we only have a few more minutes. So obviously you could have really elaborate block structures. And you can have a child who makes an incredibly elaborate block structure, but maybe does not have many language skills yet. And so the skill for building in block area is not always equal to the skill for expressing what they did and how they did it, right? So a child who made this might only be able to say Target, right? Like they built Target. And then it's your job as the teacher to add language, right? Wow, you built Target. Yeah, I notice that you built, it looks like these are the cash registers. And over here is where you can pick out things to buy. I love it, right? That's okay. And then you might have a child who only builds something very, very, very simple like this, but has the expressive language to like really go on and have a conversation with you about it with multiple language turns. And then your job as the teacher there is maybe to engage in conversation and model more block building skills and math skills. So that's it for blocks. This is always on the Padlet. Lori has an excellent Padlet where she puts all of the slides and also these one-pagers that you can take with you, hang it up in your block area up high just for yourself as reminders. Share it with the assistant teachers in your classroom and the other teachers in your building who weren't able to come today. And then some recommended resources. There's always trainings available on NJCCIS. WIDA is the consortium that has lots of resources for multilingual learners. And then Wordsmith is a really excellent resource online where you can type in words and they can give you very, very child-friendly, dual language learner-friendly definitions that you can use. That's it. Thank you.